G'day, everyone. We're doing a recap. I've got Alex Hayes. There wouldn't have been anyone else I wanted to do this recap with than Alex because he's, as self-described, the rain man of powerlifting. But we got Alex on. Alex is obviously the head coach of the winning team this year at Team Champs. So, yeah, like I said, wouldn't have picked a better person to do this recap with, not only because you're the winning team, but you know powerlifting better than anyone else, I think. So, yeah, looking
Would
forward
you
to
have
the
got
chat.
me on if we didn't win?
If you didn't win, I might have gotten you on anyway. I was thinking of having a third person.
I guess we'll never know. What's that?
We'll
What's
never
that
know.
Kanye line? I guess we'll never know.
I did think about having a third person on, like another coach, just to like add a bit of a dynamic. But I thought like on an online kind of thing, it gets a little bit like, what's the word?
It's
clunky.
hard to know when someone's going to talk and then you end up interrupting each other.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 people's okay in person, but online it gets a little bit janky sometimes. So I thought one-on-one would be good. We've got enough to talk about.
Yeah, man.
So we're currently filming this on Wednesday, so it's been a few days since the comp ended. A little bit of post-lifting depression. It's also different. It's also a unique situation for you because you actually lifted as well. So you also have the lifting euphoria. You know, you had a great comp yourself. So you're not just like in the coach's seat, but you filled lots of roles over the weekend.
I think the fact that I lifted probably means that on the first session on the Saturday, which is when I lifted, I was kind of a little bit unaware of what was going on outside of my own space. So for that first session, you might need to kind of take the reins on some of the stuff that happened. But outside of that, I was pretty clued into what was going on.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, because you filled in many roles. So for those that might have realized, 4 sessions. Session 1, you lifted. Session 2, you coached. Session 3,
refereed.
Session 4,
commentated.
So you basically saw every lift except, ironically, the session that you were in, obviously. Well, not ironically, but when you're lifting, you don't watch the lifting.
Yep. Yeah, if you go back and listen to the commentary from the last session, my voice was like completely cooked.
Yeah, it was. I actually have listened to it. No, it was such a good session. I have watched it back, and you're just like squeaking the whole time.
Yeah.
Cool. So I've got a few talking points about the whole weekend because there's lots to discuss. I do want to review every weight class and every session at least, and like kind of what we thought about the results. And before we jump into like the nitty gritty and the each session, each weight class and stuff, how are you feeling about it? This was like your first time at a Team Champs in many years. It's obviously a lot different to the last time you came, but obviously bits and pieces are the same. What were your kind of impressions and how did you find it? I know you enjoyed it, obviously, but yeah, like give us your thoughts and first thoughts.
Yeah, so I think like the community really showed up, and that was the thing that stood out to me the most, is that, like we had some serious like crowds from gyms or from coaching groups or whatever coming to watch their lifters and like getting really rowdy and getting around it. And there was sort of like a really good assumed knowledge of everyone in the crowd of what was going on with the scoreboard. Obviously, having that live team scoreboard was really helpful. I think that added a fantastic element to just following what was actually going on, because it's quite hard if you're sitting in the crowd to like be able to read the scoreboard and go, okay, this lift is for the win, and then okay, what does that do to the team points? And then it kind of just automatically shifted. So I think that was super, super useful. But overall impressions of the comp, like, it was really well run. Everything ran on time. Like, there was no dead time, where usually at powerlifting comps, like between sessions, it's usually like, okay, now we've got like a 45-minute break. It was just like final deadlift goes down and then there's like 2 minutes until the next session starts, which I liked. Obviously that's really good for the crowd too. The camaraderie between teams was really cool. Like, it is a team competition. We are competing against one another, but there was a lot of support from other teams. Like, I felt that. And I obviously tried to be supportive of other teams as well. So I felt like that was really cool. Yeah, it was overall a fantastic experience, and really looking forward to next year.
Awesome, man. I mean, on your first point about the crowds and stuff, yeah, like there was one part in the session 4 live stream. If you haven't gone like watched it, people, you should go watch it, everybody, because it was really good. That was like what I would call like the prime time, I suppose. And Alex is doing the commentary, and I forget whose lift it was. It might have been Tony Ryan 405, or it might have been one of the big lifts like that. And I could hear the surprise, not the surprise, but like the surprise in your voice. You look around and you say the words, TSF is absolutely rocking right now. Like it felt like it was, like like almost like a nightclub. Like it was really, really good crowds.
Yeah,
And
when you're in the commentary, you've got these like giant headphones on. You can't really hear anything. Like you can kind of hear your own voice, and you can kind of hear what's coming out of the cameras, but you can't really hear, what's going on behind you. And then I had to like actually turn around and look at the crowd and like fucking people on their feet pumping. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
standing
like
room
that was
only,
the
all the way to the back.
yeah. That was like, I mean, we can talk about that later when we get to the moments. I won't spoil it.
Yeah, for sure. Even like the presentation, like I said this in my speech at the presentation because it was the same as last year. The presentation was packed. Like presentation's never packed. Like people leave by that point, but it was full. Yeah, heaps of people. I think that like the team element really adds to the desire to come and watch because if one of your training partners at the gym is competing and you go and watch them, it's just you're watching one person or maybe two people, and the rest of it's kind of like sitting on your hands and waiting around. But when you've got this like team element, obviously, you're there to support the whole team. And so gyms bring their whole squads. Like you've got like 10 or 15 from every gym turn up. Suddenly the room is packed and yeah, the energy is really good.
Yeah, I
You
really
also mentioned,
liked the night session too. You mentioned like I think there's a different vibe at nighttime, and like I've obviously had a hand in running SPD Cup, and last year we put it in the afternoon, and we did that for that reason that we wanted like people to turn up and people to be rowdy and loud. Like I'm sure you've been to a million powerlifting competitions that start at 8 a.m. and the first squat comes out, the bar's loaded, and there's like two people in the crowd. Like no one's even making a peep, and everyone's just like having their first sip of coffee, and it's kind of a bit dead. And
mm-hmm.
I liked that. Even my session started at 10. That's a lot better. And then the first session on Sunday started at 1, which I think like improved that crowd from the start.
Yeah, it gives everyone a chance to actually turn up. I remember when I did it, we did the same start time last year, 1 o'clock. And one of the more seasoned referees, I shall say, kind of asked me like, "Oh, why are we starting so late on Sunday?" I was like, "Because it's cool, like, because it'll be sick. Like, why not?" And they just didn't understand it. And then I guess when they saw it, they realized, okay, they can see the purpose. But yeah, it is good. You also mentioned the scoreboard. I mean, I remember what it was like when you first did a team champs 5 years ago or 6 years ago. We didn't have a scoreboard. It was just like you had to count it all up at the end. Or we did one year where we had literally paper on the wall that would fill out like large posters would just like manually write out the scores as people lifted, and then you just have to tally up the scores. And then in 2023 we had like a prototype scoreboard of what we have now, but it was just on a Google sheet. So like imagine a Google sheet with all the teams listed that was publicly accessible. Like I shared the link and it was like view only, but someone would have to fill in the scores as it happened. So that way at least there was a source where everyone could go to and just check the score as it was happening. Because it was in Google Sheets, it wouldn't move. Like it wasn't dynamic. It wasn't like when one team, moves up in points. It was just like in listed in alphabetical order. And so the winning
Yeah,
team
yeah.
was at the bottom, for example, and then you just have to like check. Oh wait, so they're on 14. Is anyone else more than 14? Oh, they're on 15. Okay, and you're just like. But then when we had this new scoreboard put in last year, it's just so good because it just makes it so much easier.
Yeah, and I want to talk to whoever developed that for you because we need something similar for SPD Cup where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
we get an actual like scoreboard that we can show. Maybe we can even like show an overlay of it on the stream, and you could even
Mm,
add that next. You could even add that next year. Like you could add it into the stream,
yeah, that'd be good.
so that everyone at home can see it. And because like even while I was commentating, it was like, and this lift is gonna, and then we're like scrolling down. We're like, okay, how many points are they on? How many are they gonna add with this lift? And then we're like trying to figure it out. Oh, who's got the tiebreaker over this team? And we're like, I think this puts them in sixth, but I'm not sure
Yeah,
because
yeah, yeah.
it
It's
was
good.
like quite difficult
Even with strength coaches
because the
last
points
year.
ended up so close. Like the like I think there was like 8 teams between 12 and 16. Like everyone was just jammed in that middle. And then yeah, it goes down to like second and third tiebreakers to see who's in front.
Yeah, it was very close. There's numerous teams on 14, and we'll go through the scoreboard in a second. It's probably a good point now to shout out Jeff Tan, who did do the scoreboard. He's one of our lifters. He's one of the members in the gym. He's a software developer. He helped us out last year. He's helped us out again this year. Well, I mean, last year I commissioned him to do it, and this year he did some upgrades and helped me out free of charge. So he's a really, really good guy, very, very good software developer. So if you've got software needs, go speak to Jeff. His name is in the link, and we'll share it around. Maybe he can do something for SPD Cup.
That was the other
Yep.
thing. The stream itself, that was another added sort of element. I thought the commentary was really good in all the sessions. I thought the changing of the camera angles was really good. Yeah, the stream is really professional as well.
Yeah, I think like for me organizing it, I just want it to feel professional. Like I want the lifters to feel the seriousness of it, like like you said before, Alex, we've been to and seen hundreds of local comps, and they have their purpose. They're great, lifting at 9, quiet, relatively stable. Even in those contexts, it's very stressful. Like as a lifter, if it's your first 5 comps, you're nervous, you're panicking, and you don't need extra stimulation. Like you actually want less stimulation. Whereas in this kind of context, the lights, the darkness on the last day, the team pressure, your whole freaking gym is there watching you and stuff like that. That like pressure and the context really kind of adds to the flavor of the moment. So yeah, I think it was like having the live stream makes it feel like, oh shit, this is serious. Like I had members from my gym come who have nothing to do with powerlifting, but they just want to come and check it out. Obviously, they couldn't believe how professional it was. They're like, oh, you got a proper broadcast. I'm like, yeah, it's kind of pretty good, isn't it? They're like super impressed. And when you think of a live stream, you're thinking of like Instagram live on someone's phone, but then when you see this full on thing, you're like, oh, okay, this is serious.
Yeah, when I used to run live streams back at Lift back in the day, it was literally just I would put my phone on a chalk bowl and plug it into the charger and go live on Facebook.
Yeah,
like that was it.
Different world. Very different world.
Have you thought of getting like stage lighting for those night sessions?
Yeah, last year we had spotlights. Like we had like kind of stage lighting like up quite high, like say on 4-meter poles and stuff, and that was great. And it was Mikey, the live stream guy, that organized that. This year with Thirds Co, who did the photography, videography, I basically put them in contact with Mikey and said, hey, you guys need to figure out the lighting situation, because obviously for photography, videography, you need good lighting. For the live stream, we also need good lighting. But from my point of view, I also want the like kind of like darkness point of view and the contrast. And so you got these conflicting kind of needs. So I let them organize it. I didn't really actually know what was going to happen until we got there. I literally said to Billy, I wonder if I could install a wall-mounted crane, like a monitor arm, like how this thing is on.
Yeah.
If I could install one of these, pressed up against the wall with like lights, and then I could pull them out and then just shine them on the thing. And she's like, "Stop spending money on stuff." I'm like, we'll see what's in the budget next year. No, that would be good. Hey, let's quickly talk about.
And that's the last thing that you just brought up, Thirds, and how good the coverage was of it. Like, they had an edit reel out after each session, like, within 30 minutes. And they're sending lifters their full raw clips and photos all edited within like the hour. Like just so fast and so professional, and like,
just
they're also good people as well. They just chat shit with you throughout the day, and like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, Thirds Go were great. I said to one of the guys that came and watched the comp, again, who's not really into powerlifting, but is a big sports fan. I was like, when you watch like the footy or something and someone scores a great goal, and 2 minutes later the clip's on Instagram with a cover photo and it's all ready to go and stuff. It's like, that's what we're trying to do. Like, we want it to be like near instant, like posting stuff as it happens, giving it, having that, but not just like stuff from your phone, like professional quality stuff. That really added to the professionalism. Let's talk about the results as a zoomed out kind of thing. So on the team scoreboard, in first place, we have Process Powerlifting Club, 21 points. Let's go. So obviously Alex Hayes, the champions there. Third place was Compound Training, also from Tasmania, or also from Interstate. Third was Apex. Third was Apex. Fourth was SR Collective. I'll put the links to the team scoreboard and the lifter scoreboard in the bio below. So if you're watching this and you want to check them out for yourself, feel free to do so. What were your overall impressions of the results? Was it kind of what you were expecting? I mean, you did say to me prior that you thought you guys were a heavy favorite to be on top, and it kind of did pan out as you suggested. I think you even said that you guys would score 21 points to me, or 20 points plus a volunteer.
Yeah, I predicted that we would have 2 firsts and 2 seconds. I predicted that Compound would have 2 firsts, a second, and a third. They actually got 2 thirds and 2 firsts. I did actually think that Elemental would have a couple like slightly higher placings. They had 2 firsts and 2 fifths. Is that right?
Yeah.
So I thought they would be like 2 firsts and 2 thirds, or third or fourth. So I thought they would be a little bit higher. I actually thought the only 2 teams that could actually beat us were Apex and Compound, and that would kind of depend on A, whether Charles beat Declan, which he did, and B, whether Arjois or Lotta were able to win, and neither of them were able to win. So that obviously played into our hands a bit. And the other thing was Jansen pulling out. That was like probably the biggest impact on the scoreboard, because I had him winning, over Bo from my team. And yeah, we just found out that morning on the Sunday that he wasn't coming. And that kind of, really gave us probably the biggest chance. Like that kind of shifted the odds probably the most. Um, so yeah, I guess like if Jansen was available, they wouldn't have had those 2 penalty points, and they would have probably shot up the standings as well, and definitely stayed in the Premier. And I actually saw a lot of people were saying like SR Collective would be a bit lower. I think I had them 5th. So I think of the top 5, I had 4 of the top 5 in my top 5, with Elemental being the other one that weren't in the top 5. So I think, yeah, Stronghold Ballarat did a bit better than I expected, but yeah.
Yeah, so things kind of panned out the way you expected, but not panned out in the results that you expected, but maybe not the way you expected it. Like obviously nobody could have expected Jansen to pull out. You kind of did predict yourself to get 2 wins, 2 firsts, 2 wins, 2 seconds, but in a different configuration. Funnily enough, like you obviously thought Charles was going to win his class and then end up losing it on the last lift. In a great credit goes to Aaron Carew of SI Collective.
Yeah, he was awesome.
So a few minor things that are different. I think it's worth one talking point I had on my list prior to this was Apex. Apex was so close to winning the whole thing. They finished 3rd, 17 points. You guys on 21 points. But dare I say, they were so close to winning the whole thing. Adwa Hammond in the 84 kilo class missed her last deadlift for the win. If she'd got that last deadlift, they would have won. And it wasn't a Hail Mary. It wasn't a 25 kilo jump Hail Mary. It was like a within reach, very reasonable, like obviously top end, but very reasonable. Lotta came second to Langi. Again, she could have easily won that competition. I mean, Langi had the perfect day. I think she went 9 out of 9. Or no, 8 out of 9, missed one bench. But Lotta had a perfect day. If those 2 results were the other way around, like if Ardua had won and if Lotta had won, Apex would have had 3 firsts. And they would have won the whole thing. Yeah, they would have been equal with you guys on equal with you guys on points, and then won on tie breaks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that was the team that I was most concerned about, because we didn't have a chance to like have a say in any of those battles. We were just kind of sitting to the side watching. So for us versus Compound, it was like on that Saturday, we've essentially got 3 firsts locked up. And then one battle for one of us is going to get first, one of us is going to get second. But we could control that. So it was like, I felt good about that because we could control that narrative. And we were able to get that win with Charles beating Declan. But Apex, on the other hand, had the opportunity to win weight classes that we weren't involved in. And Ajwa was super, super close on that. Like it was sort of like mid thigh. And then she kind of like lost balance, fell back. And I was talking to Tyler about the Lotta versus Langi battle, and I think he made the right call in only jumping 5 kilos from Lotta's 2nd to 3rd deadlift. Obviously, it was conservative, but it was like a guarantee in the belief that Langi didn't have an extra 10.
Which I agree with.
Her second, yeah, exactly. I agree with it as well, and I think I said it on the stream. Tyler's pulling down a little bit here to force Langi to take 10 kilos, which we probably don't think she has. And she came out and clutched up and was able to take those points off them. I think in that instance, Arjo had already lost. So that would have only put them into 2nd overall, not 1st. So at that point, we'd already wrapped up the win. It was a matter of whether Apex finishes 3rd or 2nd.
Yeah, and I said this to Arjwa afterwards. We're obviously quite friendly. And I said, you basically, it looks like you missed that last deadlift and that's what cost you the win, but actually it was the bench because she missed her 3rd bench. So she dropped 2.5 there. If it was only a 207.5 deadlift that she had to finish with instead of 210, maybe that was it. Like maybe that's all it was. Credit also has to go to Avia's Emily Kano, who had a stellar day. She got, I think, 8 out of 9. If I remember,
she missed her last squat.
But pulled that last deadlift. Like she deadlifted 200, took a 15 kilo jump. And it's hard because you're lifting on day one and you don't know what's coming behind you. And so they took this 15 kilo jump, I guess, more so aiming for the 200 kilo deadlift rather than, like, I'd be curious to know how much were they thinking ahead trying to defend against Ardua, or are they just like, well, we've won our class, so let's send it for the 200. Because if Emily had missed that, Ardua would have won. Apex would, would have, been 2 points higher. They would have taken, like, everything changes off like one lift, like literally one bench press of ARDRA or one decision, and like the standings can just like almost flip around on their heads.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say like, oh, Apex was so close to winning, like, but that's just what sports is. Like, we watch sports all the time, like, oh, this team's winning by 10 points, and then all of a sudden the other team just makes a bunch of shots and the other team wins. It's like, oh, we were so close. Like, yeah, okay, you were so close, but that's what happens. Like, that's what happens in sports. You can't count your chickens. Like, it has to play out. And that's why we love sports, because unpredictable stuff happens, and you never know who's going to win. You never know what's going to happen. And, that's why we watch. If we could predict what was going to happen, it would be boring. It'd be like, oh, this guy's going to win again. There's no excitement in that. Like, we like when there's drama, and we like when there's
It has to play
things
out.
that are unpredictable. And we have to let that happen.
Yeah, I think it's funny because the closeness of sport is what we love about it, as you said, but also the way that it happens is important. Like, contextually, when you watch use basketball, probably very similar in AFL to basketball, but sometimes you see the scoreboard and you go, okay, team won by 15 points, and you're like, okay, it was maybe not one-sided, but it was a straightforward win, but it was way closer than it feels. Like, the team won by 15 or 20 points, but when you watched it, you're like, no, that was really close. And then the winning team just got a couple of easy shots towards the end, and it stretched the lead a bit more. Felt a little bit like that in a few instances, like where it looks like it was straightforward. Like, okay, Compound were always going to finish second, like, obviously, but like, nah, it was really close. Like, I feel like another example of that was Charles versus Declan in your lifter Charles in session 2 on day 1. Like, Charles was the favorite. He won by 10 kilos. So it felt like, okay, it was close, but it was like straightforward. But like, no, it was really close. Like, I know Charles was very confident on that last deadlift, but anything can happen. Like, if he missed one bench, which he nearly missed that third bench, then suddenly he would have lost. Like, he could have easily lost if he missed that last bench. And that last bench was freaking close.
It still would have been the same deadlift attempt for the win if he missed that last bench.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I did realize that at the time. Yeah. But that's what I mean. It's like anything could happen, and you just don't know. And, you have to kind of be there, and you have to like analyze the scoreboard a little bit more closely than you might realize to see those intricacies and those nuances.
Well, like, yeah, even Emily Kano versus Ajwa, like, that was what, 10 or 12 kilos between them. I think it was 10.
Yeah, in the end it was 10 kilos. Yeah, Ajwa took 12
and actually that looks like a reasonable, that looks like a reasonable gap, but it wasn't. Like, it was 1 kilo too heavy on that deadlift, or 2.5 too heavy on that deadlift.
Exactly
like,
right.
That's what the margin was.
Yeah, exactly right. And that's probably a better example than my one. Should we go into some of the weight classes, or should we go into the sessions, or how do you want to kind of structure this? What do you think we should look into?
Mate, you're the host. You tell me what to do.
Maybe let's go by weight class, because the weight classes will kind of guide us on what we're looking at. So I'm looking here at the women's 47. Let's go through them all, kind of one by one, working our way up. The 47 class had 3 lifters. 2 of them were on day 1. It was Pam and Jess. And the action started right from the get-go, because Jess and Pam, they finished with a 12.5 kilo difference on total. You'll see that they were both on day 1, 287.5 to 275. But you'll see that Pam took a Hail Mary last deadlift for the win. I mean, I wouldn't even call it a Hail Mary. It was kind of within reach. It was proved too much. And I loved it because, one thing that I found last year, Alex, you weren't there, we had 5 girls in the 48s. It was, USAPL. We had five lifters in the 48s. And almost all of them came to me at one point and said, I was so glad to have other people in my category to compete against. Because oftentimes these fringe weight classes, they're like, I'm lifting on my own. I do local comps by myself. And it's really fun to have a competition. And so from a meet director point of view, it's just as good, because the first session, or the first group, or the first session, the first lifts, there's already a tight, like, oh shit, this is going to make a big difference. Because, yeah, if Jess faltered and missed that last deadlift, for example, the result would be completely the other way around. And Melbourne Uni lifting wouldn't have been promoted, which they have been, which we'll get into. Yeah, it was a really, really good, really, really good session. You didn't catch much of it because you were lifting.
I did see the final deadlift attempt, which would have given her the win, which was like awesome to see the hype up from the TSF crew. I'm curious about that 5 kilo jump on bench press and that miss there. Was that close, or was that like?
Yeah, I'm also very suspicious.
Bit of a silly choice.
I think in hindsight, Josh feels very bad about it, because I think it was a little bit silly and got caught up in the moment type of deal. I think 47.5 was the right call, but in the moment got caught up with how easy 45 moved. So yeah, not the best.
Yeah. 5 kilos at 150 is a bit different to 5 kilos at 50.
Yeah, that's like a 15 kilo jump for us, right? Or 12, maybe 10 for me.
Yeah. Yeah, probably
And
10 for me too, mate. I'm not going good on bench.
And then Tink lifted the next day, and so she had this static target. And this is kind of something that this is a term that I've been using this weekend. Having a static target, when you're doing a normal comp, you've got a moving target. You don't actually know what you're aiming for. So Pam versus Jess, Declan versus Charles. Whereas with the day one, day two thing, you've got static targets, and you'll see that Tink's second deadlift, she took silver off Pam. And so, you've got a sitting duck there. One thing that I really love doing on the Sunday is a bit of a side note. When I was greeting everyone at the door as they were turning up on the Sunday, I'd greet someone at the door, give them a big, hug or a handshake. Ardwa walks in, I go, Ardwa, you've got your target locked in, you know what you're after. And you could see they're on a mission. These guys are walking going, I know what my total is that I'm chasing down, 672.5. I'm hunting that down and I'm going after it. And it's like they were just on a mission. So, yeah, Tink only had one target. She nailed it and then went up on her last deadlift. Obviously, it was too far away to win because that 130 was a hella grind. If you haven't seen it, you should go check it out. It's somewhere on Instagram. But yeah, 47s were a good class.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tink actually dropped her squat opener. So it was in at 90 and she actually dropped it to 87.5 and then took just a 2.5 kilo jump to 90 and didn't actually come out for the 95. So I'm actually probably thinking that they were expecting more on squat there. And, maybe if she did, I know she definitely squatted 90 quite well in training, which probably gave them hope for like 95 to 97.5. And I think if she did have a good day on squat there, it would have been even more exciting at the end. Like we would have seen an attempt for the win as opposed to the attempt for second place. But yeah, like you said, really cool to see lots of participation in a weight class that we're not used to having participation in. And on that note, Gordon, who won the 52s, is coming down to 47s for next year.
Girls, you better be ready. Just to quickly finish that point about Tink, she competed at Mega Nuts 4 weeks ago, and she got the call up 10 days out. And so CityStrength were one of the teams to have penalty points, which is going to be another talking point that I want to bring up later. So they copped 2 penalty points because of that, a late sub. She had 10 days notice, and so yeah, always tough to compete in those conditions, but she did really well. All right, 52s.
She actually also lifted in the 52s 4 weeks ago, not in the 47s. So it was.
I did not realize that.
It was a late minute cut as well as a late call up.
That's rough. All right, that's actually even more. I didn't actually realize that. Yeah, right.
Very, very impressive effort, to be honest.
Sometimes. All right, 52s. That's a session that you do know well because you were paying attention. There was 2 in day one, but it was always going to be a one kind of like one-sided race in that one in terms of day one. We had
There's actually three on day one.
Oh, sorry, Wendy Waddell. Sorry, of course. So Kaylee, Wendy, and Jordan. But I guess all 3 of those placings were kind of fixed from the get-go. What was it like in that session? Were you, I kind of warned you a little bit and said Amanda, could be within reach. Was that something on the back of your mind, or was it very much just like just do our own thing and max out what we've got?
It was very much like if we do about 350 to 355, we should be sweet. And that actually ended up being pretty much all Jordan had anyway. So, I wasn't necessarily conservative to ensure we made lifts. I was more conservative to just because that's what she had.
Yeah, she wasn't on fire. Like she took like a jump on that last squat.
Yeah, so her prep was going really, really well, and then she had this like issue with her wrist and forearm, and then she went away on holidays for a month to Japan. And her training like really suffered while she was away because this wrist thing was bothering her, and then kind of the prep kind of like went a bit sideways at that point. And we were able to get things back on track like a couple weeks out, but she wasn't quite as strong as she was when we sort of did like a testing mock meet type of thing a few blocks ago. But yeah, obviously I'm really happy with her performance given the way that prep was quite rocky. And yeah, there's a few things to clean up with some sort of like comp standard stuff, which we'll clean up. But yeah, overall I was happy with how she did. I thought that 352.5 would be enough, and we also had the body weight advantage, so they would have needed 355. And I was actually refereeing the next session with Amanda, and I could see her openers in there, and I was kind of doing the maths in my head. I'm like, okay, she's going to need this, and this. She got 3 squats, and And then I was looking at her bench open. Her bench open was 65. And I was like, cool, she's probably aiming for 72.5. That means she's going to need to pull about 160 or 162.5. Can't remember the exact number.
Mm.
I think 162.5. And I was like, cool, this is actually going to be close. Like she's going to get close to Jordan here. And then her first bench was like a fucking grinder. And I was like, okay, I think we're pretty safe here. And then they didn't even end up like going for the target at the end. They kind of just pulled the deadlifts back and, locked in what she had. So she actually had a good day, minus the bench press. But it wasn't quite enough to challenge Jordan.
Yeah, I think on paper, like a relatively good day, like 7 from 9, all your lifts, except the bench press a bad day. Obviously, I think they're a little bit disappointed because they were optimistic to try to at least have a crack, at least put yourself in the position. I know that Amanda's strong enough to squat 125. I don't know if you realize, but it's Josh's partner, so she trains at TSF quite often.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know she's strong enough to squat 125. She's benched 70 in the gym quite smoothly. And so if there was 10 kilos more there, then suddenly they only need a 160 deadlift or 157 deadlift, whatever it is. I think as an athlete, what you want more than anything is to at least have the chance. And I think when you have a day where you kind of have to resign yourself to like, okay, we're not even close, it can be a bit disappointing. So yeah, Jordan got the win pretty comfortably. Kaylee pretty comfortably.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is the weight cut, like because that was her first comp down there.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wonder if that's a factor, or maybe it just wasn't a great day. I'm not really too sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it was a bit of a combination of everything. Yeah, I think it was like the classic, like you've been there and seen it before, the overcut. Like going too far the other way, rather than keeping your weight high. Like you're very good at it. I'm very good at it. Obviously, keep your weight up is what I always try to tell people in the last 5 days. Keep your weight up. You don't need to bring your weight down. Keep your weight up until the last second. But naturally, lifters get a bit nervous, bring the weight down too early. That's a whole conversation in itself. Yeah, Kaylee comfortably in third. It was her first comp. She had a great time. We're never expecting anything super fancy from her. She made 8 lifts, so no complaints. Happy coach, happy life. Wendy Waddell was not late in a formal sense, but late relatively. Substitute in. It was her first comp. She's a masters lifter. She really didn't have any clue what she was getting into. Her coach Della was like, "You should do this comp." And she's like, "Okay," and just was like, kind of like led to the chaos. And yeah, she also had a good time. I didn't see much of her lifting, but on the scoreboard looks pretty good. So 8 out of 9 again. Can't complain with a day like that.
Yeah, it seemed like she had a good time as well.
Yes, that's what we want. Okay, the 57s were a really, really interesting class because you had one out in front and then the rest were quite close, but again, scattered. Sophie Dobson took it out and she actually won Best Female Lifter as well from Compound. That was always going to be the case. Totaled 420, 100 GL points. I mean, there's not much more to say about that.
That's actually only 10.5 kilos below the winner of Nationals this year in the Opens.
Who won Nationals? Who was that?
Cindy.
Okay.
With 430.5. It's actually above the winner of Nationals last year. So, like, she's right up there.
Yeah. Like, that is very high standard.
Yeah, and she did Nationals early this year, Open Nationals in Feb at 63. I think she finished 4th or 5th, but she actually added to her total going down. So super promising for them.
Another super cut working out well. Hero cut. And so she was against Avia's Alem on day one. Pretty one-sided, obviously. That was never going to be so hotly contested. But the real battle happened the next day. So we had Stephanie Hong of Crunwell Crew, Tracy Keogh of Stronghold Ballarat, and Danny Biscotcho all lifting on day 2. And I mean, especially the Stephanie and Tracy battle was quite close because Tracy missed a squat. She ended up getting it on the 3rd, fortunately, because otherwise it would have ended very easily. She made only one bench. And it all came down to the last deadlifts, really. Like Tracy's last deadlift put her in the lead relative to Steph, like in the silver place. And then Stephanie Hong needed her last deadlift to get on top. And it was one of those cases, a little bit like Charles, where, because you've jostled to go last, you're actually taking a weight bigger than you need, but you've got no choice to do it now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this. I'm just like, hang on, why didn't they take 150? But because of the lot numbers.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's always cool when it kind of comes down to that, like especially when you're jostling to take similar deadlift attempts. It's always really exciting. It's like, oh, if they make, we need this.
Yeah, and it's very nerve-wracking as a coach. Like, even with a bit of experience, it can be like, wait, have I done the maths right? Have I confused myself? Like, it's very easy to get like bamboozled and the attempt change comes in and you're like, wait, what do I need again? Like it can be very challenging. So yeah, Crundle Crew, important second place there because they didn't end up scoring very well and they actually didn't make the top 10. We're going to go through the whole team's scoreboard in a moment. And Tracy Keogh Stronghold, a very important third because, again, her last deadlift actually not only got in front of Stephanie, but also got in front of Arlem, because Arlem finished on 327.5. So it ended up being quite close. Again, might not seem it, but it was in the end. The 63.
Yeah, Tracy had a couple of issues with the calls. So I was reffing this session, and she beat the rack call on squat, I believe, and I'm pretty sure she beat one of the calls on her first bench as well.
I think she needs to
she just came out a bit scattered and just like, what's that?
Her coaching standard is obviously a little bit low. Needs to improve the coaching, I think.
Is that still you?
Yeah, still me.
I thought you were talking shit about someone for a second.
In her defense, she trains at different gyms all the time because of work. She's always moving around, so it's a bit chaotic, and she doesn't have reliable training partners. Anyway, I'm going to try to shift the blame. The 63s were a very hotly contested class. So Fiona Wu lifted on day one by herself, Melbourne University, first place. But the real battle, there's only 3 in the 63s, which was very odd because, it's a central weight class, like a middle weight class. That tends to be the most popular one, 63, 69, the deepest fields. Well, we only had 3. And usually with 3, okay, not so exciting. But the exciting part was both Twee and Deuce had the same nominated total, 412.5. They both had this equal PB total. And so I was really excited for this class. Didn't pan out with the excitement that we hoped for because Twee had a rough time on squats.
Yeah, she missed her first 2 on depth. Actually, she missed the first one for not straightening her knees at the top. Like she finished the squat, but like wasn't fully upright. And she fixed it on the last one. It was actually quite easy, but it was pretty much over at that point. With Deuce making 3 squats, it was pretty much done. So Deuce was able to go on and what did she total? 412.5? Is that right?
A little bit less, I think 410 maybe. Yeah, 410.
410, yeah. So yeah, she had a really good day and yeah, I'm not sure if that was like a PB for her. I don't think so.
No, I think her total PB is 412.5. But yeah, a little bit disappointing from Twee. I'm sure she'll be a bit sad about it. When I actually look at the scoreboard now, depending on what jumps they're planning on taking on squats, she opened less on squats. They opened about the same on bench, or they finished on the same on bench more or less. She opened less on deadlift. So maybe in the nominations it was going to be close, but maybe on the day it wasn't going to be as close as we were hoping it was going to be.
Yeah.
But Deuce had a good day. She got her last deadlift. She was really happy about that. That's, I think, a long time coming at 182.5. Actually, last year she did 182.5 in the warm-up room afterwards. So I said to her during warm-ups, like, you need to do it on the platform this time. I said, I'm sorry, we don't have blue plates on the platform, so you have to do it on red plates. But yeah, happy to see her. So Melbourne Strength Culture, important 6 points there. Twee with the 4 points for CityStrength. Fiona Wu in third, but yeah, got the win on the first day, which is very important for the challengers bracket. The 69s, this was, in my opinion, the most exciting class. They were put in prime time. They were the last session. They were the last group. I don't know what your take was. You watched this on the live stream, or not watched this, you commentated this on the live stream, so you are very aware of this. I felt like this lived up to the hype that I felt like it was deserving of.
It did, with how it came down at the end. But I think some stuff that happened at the start kind of shifted it from a 5-person race into a 2-person race quite quickly.
Yes.
So we were kind of thinking like, yeah, I think Lungi and Lotta are the favorites, but these other 3 have a chance. Like that's what we were thinking at the start. And then with Carmen missing her first 2 squats, and with Jess and Isabella both missing their third squats, it very quickly became it's a race for first, and then it's a secondary race for third.
Yeah, it was like two-person races, sort of.
Yes, and I think Carmen was still in the hunt, like just in the hunt. Wasn't quite completely out of it. And then she, missed her last bench and then had to kind of Hail Mary to get that 4th place finish at the end, which was a little bit too heavy. But yeah, Lotta and Lungi were fantastic the whole way through. 8 for 9 for Lungi, 9 for 9 for Lotta. I think where Lotta probably had more was on bench press. Like that 3rd attempt bench press was quite easy, and I think they pulled it down because they didn't think they needed the extra 5.
Mm-hmm.
When I think Tyler may want that one back if he were to have it over. Maybe not, because, making 2.5 is always better than missing the 5. But that might have pushed Lungy over the edge if she needed an extra 2.5 on that final deadlift. And like we spoke about earlier, they took that smaller jump from second to third deadlift to force Lungy over what they thought she had, and she nailed it. So maybe she would have had an extra 2.5 anyway.
And that's the thing, it's easy for the critic afterwards to say could have, should have, but at the time you can only make the decisions with what information you have. I think they made the right calls. If Lotta jumped, like I said, better to make 2 than miss 5. Many a coach has been sucked into taking those jumps thinking, yeah, they've got it. And then the harsh reality is 5 kilos is a lot on bench. 5 kilos is a lot in any context. And so, like you said, if they thought they had it, they didn't need the extra 5. Let's just let's bank the 2.5 and make it easy for ourselves. But credit to Lungy, because after that 180 deadlift, I was like, oh man, like Lotta's second was easier than Lungy's second. And Lotta was in the driver's seat. So I was like, well, how can Lotta lose this? And then they did 177. I was like, great. Now Lungy's going to have to go to 190. I'm like, I don't think she can do 190. We got hyped up and there was always a chance. And pressure does things to people. Some people crumble. Some people, rise to the occasion. And she rose to the occasion. It was just so sick. Like the SI Collective crew were insane in the crowd. Like that session, they had both her and Aaron Carew. And so the crowd were going nuts. Like it was just such a great lift. Like it was just honestly awesome.
Yeah, those are probably my 2 favorite lifts of the weekend: Aaron's third deadlift and Lungy's third deadlift. And the coach in the background going completely ape. Just like, there's such good vibes. Absolutely love that. And yeah, to talk on your point before, I've never had a conservative third attempt decision that I regretted.
Mm-hmm.
So like, if it was a make, the only decisions I've ever regretted as a coach were when I was too aggressive and I should have been more conservative. So
yeah.
I think you're right in that. Tyler, say again.
A la Hugh Spacker at Nationals.
Remind me.
Yeah, so better to make it than miss. I agree.
Yeah, I think like in the moment I was actually like, I'm glad they're taking 102.5 here because they can get that extra little bit on the lead, and then I'm glad they're taking the 177.5. Like I actually said that on the commentary. Like I think these are the right decisions. Lungy was too good.
That's it. Lungy was too good. And then in the race for third, Jess and Isabella, they both missed the third squats. Isabella missed the third bench, but only cost us 2.5. So it's, not the worst thing in the world. And they went toe to toe on deadlifts, and Jessica comes out on top. She gets her last deadlift. Again, just won by 5 kilos, but I guess they were just forced into doing 180 because Isabella did 180. They kind of waiting to the last second. Like she would have only needed to do, let me look here.
175.
You're 175 to have taken the lead, but then you're leaving the ball and the other lifters caught. Then Isabella could have gone 182.5. So while there was like this battle for first, there was also this battle for third, but they also had to keep their eyes, looking over their shoulder because Carmen is a deadlift hero and you can never count the deadlift hero out. You just never know.
Yeah, and Jessica did a really, really good job on that final deadlift as well. It was actually quite smooth through the middle. Like she probably had a little bit more. And, who knows if, she makes that third squat, whether she could have forced herself to kind of like battle for that second or first place. It may have been a completely different competition had that happened. But that was really good from Crundle and from Jess to knock that deadlift over. Like Crundle did a good job waiting because, like you said, he could have gone earlier and forced Isabella to go after. But I think he did the right thing, knowing that, she was the better deadlifter and could have just waited. And yeah, Carmen as well. Like I was interested to see what they would do because, that 15 kilo jump was quite big. But yeah, that was probably just a little bit too much and deadlifting more than she had because of the missed kilos earlier in the squat, really.
Yeah, I mean, it's always disappointing to have someone miss lifts, especially early in the session like that, like missing 2 squats, kind of like what happened with Twee. Yeah, it's very hard to win a powerlifting meet if you only make 1 squat. Very, very difficult, especially when it's this close. And so could have been a different case. Like even if they got 1 squat, like if they got their opener, if they got 2 squats, if they got their opener, jumped 10 kgs and got that, then suddenly, that's a 3-way race for the bronze rather than 2-way, like a genuine 3-way race the whole time. rather than a 2.5 kind of thing as it was. So yeah, close. Also worth mentioning, Tony Wong from Paragon Strength and Performance, she lifted on day one on her own. So although this class was very deep, they all lifted on day two bar Tony. So she took the win in her class. She scored 377.5. Kind of a good thing she was on day one because they were able to score the 4 points that they needed on that day. And ended up finishing 6th behind, just 5 phenomenal girls, all totaling over 400. Great lifting. Okay, the 76ers, we had 3 lifters, all of them on day one. So none of them on day two. And first place was Compound Training's Natalia Lisinski. She had the perfect day. She went 9 out of 9. She's only a junior. I think she's going to Costa Rica this year for the World Champs. And so I just think she had like an absolutely stellar day. Couldn't have had a better day, honestly.
Yeah, there's not much to really say about her performance other than that. It was just, flawless from start to finish.
She benched 117, and I looked at one of my guys who's about the same body weight who benches 107. And I said, dude, you got some work to do. You got some work to do, man. He's like, I know. I'm like, we both have got work to do. Sam Sutton was in second.
And I think that 117.5 bench is above the open national bench press record. I'm pretty sure it's 115 currently.
Like, that's insane. I didn't realize that. I wish we'd acknowledge that during the lifting because it was, that's just such a high standard. Like, it's almost hilarious to look at the scoreboard because it's 117.5 bench and then Sam Sutton in second benching 65. And like, Sam is not a weak lifter. She's a good lifter. And so it just really highlights the standard difference.
Yeah, so Natalia actually benched more than any other woman in the competition by 12.5 kilos. And she's in the third heaviest weight class. So like that's pretty impressive.
And she's 22 or whatever she is, 21. Sam Sutton in second for Avia, Eleni in third for VA Strength. So the totals were very spread, 470, 350, 270. So again, one of those classes not so competitive, but important points for all of those teams. They're all on day one. In some sense, it's kind of good when you've got those 1 or 2 lifters where you're like, okay, their result is more or less fixed, and I can kind of focus all my energy on your other lifters in your team that are jostling for those placings. If you had 4 lifters all jostling for placings, I just don't know how one's heart could tolerate that in one day.
Well, that's kind of what we saw from Lulift. They had probably the highest variance in where they could finish.
Yes.
Like if they all had great days, they could have won. If they didn't have great days, they could have been relegated, which is what happened. So I think you're right. Like having those couple of weight classes, which you're pretty sure are going to be, first or second, really kind of like reduces that stress a little bit.
Yeah, it makes the rest of the day a bit more predictable for you. I do want to touch on Uplift Performance in a second about their variance because they're one of the teams who really could have gone either way. Yeah, there were some teams a bit more predictable, but they were one where a lot of their lifters were lifting in the deeper classes. And so, it does make it a bit more interesting in that sense. All right, let's round out the women who got the 84 and the 84 plus. So we already touched on the 84s. Emily Kano won 10 kilos ahead of Ardwa. It took a Hail Mary attempt. Well, not Hail Mary, but a last deadlift attempt from Ardwa with a 472.5 total. She took 210 to try to take the win. It wasn't enough. A very critical 2 points lost for Apex Strength there. And Nikita McBride on day one from Paragon, another silver medal, so another 4 points for Paragon. It's worth mentioning Emily won Best Female Lifter at USAPL Nats last year, so she's a very talented lifter. We know she is. And she put on a clinic. She squatted 192.5, benched 90, and she was stoked with that. That's a PB as well, and deadlifted 200 kgs. Like, I think there were only two women to deadlift 200 kilos all weekend, and she was one of them. And so, not much more to say about that, really.
Yeah, and Avia obviously getting promoted next year, so that was a big help.
Yes.
That 6 points was a huge help for them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like a critical win for them. And the 84 kilo plus category, Ashel Amanaska from Paragon, Ash Amanaska from Paragon. All 3 of these lifters were on day one, so a little bit like the 76ers. Was always going to win. She's got the biggest lift in all 3. But then it came down to a last lift from Bro Georgeson. She deadlifted 160. I think they could have even just taken 157.5. That would have been enough to take the win because I'm just triple. Yeah, because Shanine was lighter. But I think they could have even just taken 152.5. But they had to wait for Shanine. Right, so Shanine's gone 155, and then they've gone to 160. But it ended up being no issue at all, and they take silver medal for groove lifting.
Yep. I didn't see any of this because I was coaching the boys in the opposite group, I think.
Yeah.
This was session 2 of day 1?
Yeah, session 2, day 1, yeah. All 3 of them were there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I didn't see much of the other group on that day.
No, it was a good session. I mean, like, if you even just look at the scoreboard, Shanine missed 2 squats, and like that 12.5 kilos ended up being the difference. VA strength could have scored a silver. I mean, objectively, it doesn't really affect the scoreboard so much. Like, VA strength were towards the bottom of the overall team score. Groove lifting weren't really in contention for promotion, really. So, but between themselves, obviously they wanted a competitive fight, and we got one. So, and kind of like what I said before about the 47s, oftentimes the supers, the 84 plus, don't have that sort of competition. And so the fact that there was at least a little bit of tussle in there, made it for an exciting day of lifting anyway.
Yeah, and like you said, they don't get a lot of competition at local meets, so it's nice to like experience that, even if it's not like super influential on the overall standings. It's nice for those lifters to have that experience because they'll come back better for having that battle. And next time they do that battle, they'll be, they'll have that experience under their belt, and they'll have those scars, and they'll be able to, use that to their advantage next time.
Yeah, they'll have that experience to draw from. All right, the 66 class, on day 1, we had 2. We had Jet Bolton and Ashish from Elevate and Paragon, respectively. Now, Jet was poised to lift in the 59 class, turned up late to weigh-ins, and then missed weight by 100 grams. And so Paragon Strength were a little bit annoyed because they were ready to get full points in the 66 kilo class, but had to fight against Jet Bolton, who's a very good lifter. And so Jet won the 66s on day 1, Ashish in second, and then John Chan came next day and obliterated the total by 50 kilos.
So where was Elevate on the overall standings?
On the team score, they were towards the bottom. I think they were 18th, yeah. So they had all 1-pointers, and Jet came 4th. Scored 4 points.
So Jet would have got 6, and they wouldn't have had those penalty points. So they would have finished on 10 if he made weight. I still wouldn't have promoted them, but yeah, quite a big difference.
Well, yeah, like you said, it's a 4-point turnaround. They lose 2 and they lose 2 again. Like, they could have won, and they could have not had those penalty points for missing weight. So yeah, a little bit of a costly kind of result there, but like you said, not costly in the sense of they wouldn't have gotten promoted anyway. And John Chan came through the next day from Elemental. I mean, he was always the favorite. He had a reasonably good day, missed his deadlift opener, which was a little bit scary. Went up 5 kg.
Yeah, he
very confident.
beat the down command.
Right. Okay, I didn't see it. I think when you're going to win a weight class already, like, just get the total. Like, I don't know if I would go up 5 kilos. Like, there's no reason to in my mind. Just get the lift in, just get it done, and then you can, like, you're not trying to keep up with anyone. You've already won. You just need the total.
Yeah, almost open at like whatever the minimum you need to take the lead is. Like he would have 190 or something. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like, exactly right. Open at 50 kgs less. But it worked out fine. He totaled 580. Elemental gets 6 points there. The 74s were a deeper class, but not necessarily much more competitive. Like, the standard was decent. Brian Ong was always going to win. He's previously a 500 dots lifter at his best. And so Brian Ong of the Wide Boys totaled 657 on day 1, and he scored 4 points. Probably not as much as people were expecting, because I think last year he totaled 700 at 75.1. So he weighed, if you didn't see this, Alex, he weighed in 100 grams above the weight class on purpose last year to be in the higher weight class to take points off someone else. Strategically so. So at 75.1, he totaled 700. We knew he wasn't going to be at his best, but I think 657.5 was still a little bit less than even we were anticipating. And so some people were talking about maybe Frank Bachetta having chances to catch that, but in the end, it wasn't even really close, to be honest.
Yeah, when I saw his openers, so I did his weigh-ins. When I saw his openers, I was like, okay, this is actually going to be quite close. Obviously, he opened above what Brian did on squat, bench quite a bit below, but above again on deadlift. So with the right jumps and no misses and everything, it could have been close, but ended up not being particularly close in the end. But also a very clear second place for uplift.
And then in third place, Dean from Melbourne Strength Culture. So who also lifted on day 2, along with Edgar, who also lifted on day 2. Edgar lifted on day 2, and I guess his target, as you can kind of read from the scoreboard, was to pip Ryan Coden, who lifted on day 1. He totaled 582.5. Edgar totaled 585. But Dean's also floating around. So, I mean, Edgar, SI Collective could have finished in third if things had panned out slightly differently. So, yeah, competitive group in that sense, because you've got like 585, 582.5. Those three lifters could have easily been in any order, really. You know, you run this meet 5 times, and you might have 5 different results.
Yep. So yeah, very crucial third place for Melbourne strength culture as well.
Yeah, very important.
Especially when Edgar could have been quite close to that.
Yes. And worth a shout out to Lockie from TSF, who had a PB total 530. So good job, Lockie. Very happy about that. All right, the 83s, the big one. Take it away, Alex.
Oh, you want me to talk about this?
You do it.
So I lifted on Saturday, totaled 682.5. Very happy with my performance.
I said 672 when I was cracking that joke. That's why I didn't land. My mistake.
Yeah, I thought so, and I was like, I think he's just wrong. So I'm just going to ignore him. Yeah, so I lifted on the Saturday, total 682.5, which was about 30 kilos above my best last time I was in the 83s. So very happy about that. I knew that I had almost no chance of beating Aaron with that total. I think if I were to put up like 695 or something like that, which is probably like the top end of what the plan was, then there was a small chance. But you know, after doing 682.5, I was like, okay, I'm pretty much locked into second here. And Aaron took my total and equaled me and go ahead on body weight on his opening deadlift. They actually changed up by 2.5 or 5 to lock that in, which is smart. And then there was kind of not really a battle for third either with Rodney from CityStrength, who he had a good day. Not a fantastic day, but a good day, locking in 655. And then after that, sort of a big drop off. So although there was a lot of lifters in the 83s, the top 3 were like separated by quite a bit. And then there was a big drop off after that as well. So it wasn't particularly competitive.
For sure. I think it's probably a good cue to discuss an idea that I have for next year about changing the point system. So right now we go 6, 4, 3, 2. So top 4 are kind of important, and then 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And if you finish 5th or 8th, it doesn't really matter. You score 1. That was okay in the USAPL when we had like 21 weight classes, but now we have less weight classes, more lifters per weight class, more teams. And so you're getting more of this, you know, like this 83 class where there's 11 in the class. And so, you know, for example, Melbourne Strength Culture's Callum Beaton totaled 592.5 in 7th, Roma Craig 590, then 587.5. So you got these 3 lifters from 7, 8, 9, but they all score the same points. And so,
well, I mean, even better example is 5th place 612.5 versus 11th place 495, and those guys get the same points.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And so part of me is thinking about next year, especially if we have more teams, like if we have closer to 22, 24, 25 teams like I want, having the point system run 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So just shuffling everything up to. And that way, at least there is some reason to fight for 5th and 6th place. Because right now, fighting in those kind of like placings is effectively meaningless, like from a points point of view, because the weight classes have more than 5 per lifters per group.
Yeah, I like that. I also wouldn't have anything against like after 7th or 8th, just everyone gets 0.
I think
like, why do they have to get 1?
I think you should get 1 for having a total. Like if you bomb, you get 0. That's the key.
If you bomb, you should get minus points.
Okay. I like that. You get penalty points. You wasted everyone's time. Go home.
You should get minus points if you bomb.
Worth noting that of 76 lifters, not a single bomb. So we'll take that. That's a positive result.
Couple were pretty close.
There were a couple of close ones. Yeah. Not many, but a couple of close ones. Okay. The 93 kilo class, another important group. We had 12 lifters in it. So a bit of a spread day 2 to day 1. Day 1 was always going to be the Bo show. And Bo Mrdanovic totaled 715, had a fantastic meet, dropped his last deadlift. But yeah, was always going to win day 1 and was always going to win the whole thing, except for Jansen.
Yeah, so I was expecting Jansen to do sort of like mid 700s. And unless he had
just to make it
Jansen of uplift. And unless he had an absolute shocker, I didn't know if Bo could beat him. I didn't expect Bo to beat him. And then we got word on that Sunday morning that Jansen pulled out. Do you actually know why?
So the story that I'm getting is from the coach on the day, Charles, is that he's been injured. And I was a little bit incredulous because I was like, well, I mean, did he roll his ankle last night? Like, he would have known he was injured.
Yeah, why didn't he pull out earlier? Yeah.
Yeah, why isn't he only telling you? Why did he only tell you this last night or this morning? And apparently he'd been like injured for a while and trying to like nurse it through and stuff, and just couldn't work out. And so he had to pull out. Coach had to replace him. They replaced him with Ari Chenhall. I did find it, at the risk of getting into controversial topics, I did find it interesting that he didn't turn up. Like, if I was injured to the point where I couldn't lift and I had to withdraw and I felt really bad for my team that I'd let them down, I'd still turn up. I'd turn up and apologize to everyone and say, I'm sorry, I can't lift. I'm just so hurt and it's just not going to work today. But he didn't actually come. So is there something
Do you
more?
think that do you think that like so I kind of disagree with that, because I think when you are feeling shame, showing face is the worst thing you can do
Maybe.
for that feeling.
I mean,
but I
it's
also
not really
think
good for you, but it's good for everyone else. It's like just from a public front, I suppose.
Yeah, I think maybe the other factor could be that he was waiting to see what Bo totaled, and if it was within grasp, maybe he would have competed. Like, let's say Bo totaled like 680, maybe it was like, oh, okay, I'm not that injured, maybe I can
that
do
even hurt,
685. So I think I don't actually know anything about the situation, so I'm just kind of guessing.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to say that we're just speculating, and benefit of the doubt. Like, I'm sure that he would have loved to have competed, but just couldn't make it work.
Yeah, and that was when I kind of thought that we had a really good chance to win overall, because I was expecting us to lose points in that battle. But Ari Chenchel did such a good job on short notice. 8 for 9 day, only just missing his last bench press. And ended up finishing third in a class with how many 12 lifters. And he's only 18 years old, so that was really impressive to be able to kind of sub in like that. And because he was supposed to be assistant coaching.
Yeah, exactly. And the funny thing is, he was supposed to assistant coach for Uplift, but then he was also supposed to be volunteering in the next session on behalf of Apex.
Yeah,
this guy's like an everyman.
yeah.
And so Apex had to find a new volunteer point. They had to like, oh, we need someone else to volunteer now to get our point. Yeah, Ari Chenhall did a great job swapping in. He lifted 4 weeks ago, did a full training week, put up a good show. But it was just a very critical change because, we mentioned earlier about Uplift being one of the teams that could have gone either way. This was a huge turnaround. Like, instead of scoring 6 points, they scored 3 plus a 2-point penalty.
Minus,
so basically
minus 2.
5 points.
Yeah.
And as a result, they finished in 12th overall and aren't getting promoted next year, or aren't staying in the Premier bracket next year.
Yeah, and maybe if Jansen was able to lift, and even if he was able to come third or second, they would be in the Premier, right?
Well, yeah, if he did the same result without the 2-point penalty, they would have been on 14, and they would have been equal with CityStrength, and it would have come down to tiebreakers, which would have been hard for me to read right now, but then it would have gone to GL points, and they would have just beaten CityStrength. Like, it would have gone right down to average GL points, and they would have just won by like literally 1 GL point on average.
Yeah,
and they would have gone promoted. They would have stayed in, and CityStrength would have fallen out. But I mean, this is all could have, should have, what would have happened.
Yeah,
hard to say.
Yeah, for sure. And like, I want to give the benefit of the doubt to Jansen. I assume that he's actually crushed that he wasn't able to be there.
Yeah, of course.
He's actually seriously hurt, and so yeah.
The 105s were a great session. Day one, Liam Kubert totaled 357.5, big total. Nicholas Love was also on day one, a little bit behind pace with 652.5, so one of those one-horse race. But the big thing was, we all knew that Tim Wang and Tyson Andrews were lifting the next day. And so Liam's pretty much only mission was stretch it, put up the biggest total possible. I mean, the same objective you would have at any meet, really. But it's knowing that if you falter, you're just leaving the door open. And he had a really good day. Like, he made 8 lifts. He said to me afterwards that he was very aware of like missing that last deadlift is probably going to cost him. He took a 12.5 kilo jump on that last deadlift and missed. If it was 307.5, that extra 7.5 could have made a difference. Hard to say. He ended up finishing in third. Both Tim and Tyson caught him the next day. And it was a great session, actually, Tyson and Tim's session.
Yeah, I wasn't really sure what to expect from Tyson or Tim. I don't know them prior to this weekend. But I thought that, like, just looking at open powerlifting, seeing how close they were to what Liam did do on Saturday, I thought that they would be able to kind of hunt him down, and they did. I think they both took the lead on second deadlifts. So I know Tim went first, and he took first place on his second deadlift, and then Tyson went after him and actually just jumped ahead of Liam because of body weight, and then he had to go an extra 5. He actually only needed 300, but they went 302.5 on the last one.
Was it because of lot number though? Like, could they? I don't think they could have gone down.
No, because Tim did 300.
And
actually, yeah. I mean, it must have been. Must have been,
yeah.
So yeah, that was really interesting battle, and obviously really crucial to the overall standings. It's funny, when Aaron beat me, the scoreboard shifted and Compound was on top, and Claudia came up to me and she's like, "We're not winning anymore." And I'm like, "Yeah, don't worry. Like, Liam's about to lose some points."
Nice. Yeah, very.
And then and then Liam lost. Ended up losing 3 points. Yeah.
And again, one of those sessions that could have gone either way. Like, if Liam had made a last deadlift, then suddenly he would have won probably. But also, if Tyson had gotten 2 squats, then that would have been game over from the get go. So all it takes is one. And oftentimes these red lights, it's like one white light or one red light away. Like, you're one light away. Like, you get 2 whites or 2 reds, and you just can't help but think, I was one light away from winning or losing, one white light away from winning the whole comp.
Yeah, and Tyson's second and third squats were both depth, both 2-1.
Correct, yes.
So like super, super close. And I think like he was probably the deserving winner. Like, he was probably the strongest guy. And he probably deserved to win, even though he didn't execute the way that he would have liked. He was the strongest guy. So I think it makes sense that he did win. It would have been really interesting if Liam was actually on the Sunday. It would have been a battle that would have been definitely played out differently.
Yeah.
For sure. And hopefully we'll see that next year.
The 120 class was mainly contested on day 1. It was Charles and Declan. We've already mentioned this before. Charles got the better of Declan by 10 kilos in the end. I think, how many competitions has Charles done? Like 10 or 12, and he's never missed a squat. And he dropped 12 kilos on the squat. And Charles was coming in as a favorite the whole time. But when he dropped 12 kilos on his squat, I turned to you and I was like, this is going to be closer than I think we thought it was going to be, dude. Like, you got to be careful. And credit to Declan, that last deadlift, we were both a little bit skeptical about 320, but he freaking nailed it and really put the pressure on Charles.
They had 322 put in, and I was like, I don't think they have 322. Then when they dropped to 320, I was like, all right, here we go. So I had my change cards ready to put in. If Declan missed, I was going to, I think, put in 330 just for Charles to just go and have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But if Declan made, then we obviously have to do the minimum we need to get the win. And I was extremely confident for the 320. The only thing that annoyed me was that he fucking didn't put the bar down for about 8 seconds. And I was like, Charles, put the fucking bar down now.
If that thing slips, if 320 kilos slips out of your hand, that's a costly $3,000 mistake.
And he's had missed deadlifts on grip a lot of times as well.
Okay.
But it's never been like, it's never flung out. It's always been like he gets to the top and it's slipping.
Yeah. Right.
It was secure, but it was still like, bro, put the fucking thing down.
And so the target was 790. Aaron Crew was always going to be the heavier lifter, so he knew what total he needed. And it came down to the last deadlift, and it was awesome. And it wasn't a Hail Mary deadlift. Like, it wasn't totally unreasonable, but it was top end. Like, he opened at 280, 312 was like towards the top end. And so it was kind of 50-50 the whole time. His second deadlift, Aaron Crew from SR Collective, took the lead over Declan, so they jumped into second. Like, this was perfect attempt selection. And then third deadlift for the dub, and the place went off. There's such a great video of Chunks, the coach, turning to the camera and screaming. It's in one of the ads. That's what I'm talking about. And it was, that energy was sick. I loved it.
Yeah, that was really fun. And like, obviously I was on the live stream. My lifter was getting beaten, and I was still super pumped for Aaron and for SR Collective. Like, that was, it was really cool. Like, obviously Charles was the favorite, but he didn't execute on that third squat, and it cost him. And, had he made that third squat, Aaron probably doesn't have 325.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably, a completely different scenario. But yeah.
Yeah.
Hats off to Aaron, hats off to SRSC. That was one of my favorite moments of the comp, even though it was my guy getting beaten.
Yeah. Commentator hat on, best moment. Coach hat on, sad moment, but fine.
Worst moment. No, it was still fun. It was fun because it didn't. It was fun because it wasn't compound stealing points or apex stealing points.
True.
Because it was at that point in the competition, we'd already locked up the win.
Sure. That's true, actually.
So it was like I just want to see the best powerlifting moment.
Yeah,
the coolest moment.
And then Aaron Grant got injured, unfortunately, so he finished in 4th, but still an important couple of points for Stronghold Ballarat. The 120 class again can often be, pretty one-sided, but to have 3 lifters within 12.5 kilos, all pushing towards 800 kilo totals, like, man, there's some big weights being lifted on day 2. And the 120, speaking about big weights, Jason Oakley of Stronghold Ballarat was always going to finish in 2nd. He totaled 677. Had a pretty good day, went 8 out of 9. Not much to say about that. He lifted at Mega Nuts a few weeks ago. But the man of the moment, of the hour, was Tony Reinmuth, putting up the biggest tested squat in sleeves in Australian history.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably the most exciting moment for the crowd, for the whole meet, for the whole weekend, to be honest. Just seeing the bar bend and like seeing someone walk it out and just like have it flapping, it's just like
surreal.
There's nothing more exciting in powerlifting than the biggest squat, other than a deadlift attempt for the win. But the squat wasn't like meaningful. Like Tony would have won if he squatted 305, or probably even if he squatted 205. But that moment, it was just like, it's just, you don't see stuff like that very often, and in fact, you don't see it ever, because it was, as you said, the biggest tested sleeve squat in Australian history. I think I actually said that on the stream. Like, you just witnessed history. Like, that was a real moment.
Absolutely. I think there's also something to be said, like, when you're a spectator and you're watching lift after lift, 250 squat, 270 squat, 295 squat, 307 squat, 250 squat, 270 squat, and then the biggest squat to 405. Like, there's no, like, literally the second biggest squat was Aaron Carews 307.5. So, like, literally, there's 100 kilo void between Aaron Carew and Tony Reinmuth. I think that really, like, highlights, it's not just like a little bit more, it's like 35% more or whatever it is, like a whole 100 kilos more. Like, it's just, unfathomable. I think
2 whole red plates per side.
Of like stripping the tree of all the reds. Like, there's no reds left in the room. Like, every red in all of Victoria is in this. Is in the
on this bar. Yeah,
the bar is full. The bar isn't just loaded; it's full. Like,
there's no space.
Yeah, it was awesome. So Tony obviously won, benched a bit below his best, and just put together a good total, and ended up scoring 4 points for Apex. And so
his total was actually 12.5 kilos above the Australian record total in opens, in super heavyweights.
And it's my understanding that he'll be trying to break that at SPD Cup this year.
Yeah, so Jackson obviously competes, I think, on Sunday at Worlds. So he's the current record holder. I think he'll actually go ahead of what Tony did, which will extend his record, because it's a world meet. You can have records broken, Australian records broken, but then Tony will have a chance to break that squat record officially. Maybe break the bench press record off Jackson, and then maybe take the total off him as well. So he'll be doing SPD Cup October 25th as CityStrength HQ.
Cool, we'll be there. It's probably a good moment actually that I should mention that CityStrength have been the major sponsor of TSF Team Champs, so big plug to them. I think I said this on the presentation on Sunday. It's very rare to be able to get a financial sponsor. A lot of sponsors say to me, "We'll send you a hamper, we'll send you some t-shirts, we'll give you $100 gift voucher to our massage parlor or whatever." And that is all very helpful. But when you get a genuine sponsor like CityStrength, that just tells you that, like, they're there to actually grow the sport. And I mean, like, Alex, you're a testament to, like, events like this feel like, oh, the sport's growing. This is big. This is serious. And that just doesn't happen without money. So a big thanks to CityStrength. Go check out the website. Their link is in the bio. Go show them your support as well, because they genuinely care about powerlifting.
Yeah, we didn't have stuff like this when we started. Like, it wasn't a thing.
No. Yeah, it was always the case. There's no money. That was always the narrative. There's no money.
Yeah.
Even when I went in the gym, man, people would say, like, even he who shall not be named said to me, it's like, you have to do powerlifting / CrossFit or powerlifting / weightlifting. you can't make money just from powerlifting. And I was like, well, I think you can. And like, we can.
Yeah, you can
We
now.
have full-on careers in powerlifting now. All right. So our promoted teams, important to mention, we had 4 on day 1, all get promoted thanks to their top 4 placings. And so the 4 teams we had promoted from day 1 for finishing top 4 in the challenge bracket, obviously Process Compound, Stronghold, Paragon Strength, and Avia Performance. And so the way that the system works is that those top 4 teams get promoted no matter what, even if they lose all their points on day 2. So imagine they lose all their points, they end up finishing 15th, doesn't matter. They finish top 4, they get promoted. And then after day 2, the next best 6, excluding those guys, because they could finish in the top 10, also get promoted. As it happens, they all finish in the top 10 anyway. So it kind of works out kind of neatly that those 4 teams are within the top 10. But the surprise is that Melbourne Uni Lifting Club also finished in top 10. So they also get promoted. And so we actually had 5 teams from the Challengers bracket move up into the Premier bracket for next year. But it also means, because we can't have everyone in the Premier bracket, some teams fall out. And so those teams that fall out are Melbourne Strength Culture, Uplift Performance, and the Crundle Crew. And so both of these teams lifted in Premier bracket 2 years in a row. They all lifted their last year. They've all been displaced. And so we'll have to lift on day 1 next year. Is this much of a surprise to you? I mean, like, obviously Uplift being kicked out was a surprise. To me, Strength Culture moving out was a little bit of a surprise, but also I knew they weren't bringing their strongest team. How did you see the top 10 kind of faring?
I'm definitely surprised that Uplift didn't make it through. But as we spoke about, that Jansen situation is probably the reason why. Like, losing points there and then also subbing someone in who wouldn't have done as well. That's a really tough break. So that sucks for them. I know Victor will be bringing the best possible team next year to come back and make sure that he's in the Premier the following year. Strength Culture, I wasn't sure because I didn't know who 2 of their lifters were. Turns out they were both quite new. One of them was doing his first comp. One of them was doing his third comp. Obviously, Deuce was very strong. She was projected to win, and she did. But, you have to do better than just one guaranteed first. Dean, I knew was a good lifter, but there was also 2 other stronger lifters in the 74 class. So not a huge surprise about Strength Culture. Definitely not as much of a surprise than Uplift. Crundle Crew, not really too sure what I was expecting. Let me check what I had them in the scouting. I think I had them in the top sort of 6. Let me just check my
Crundle
scouting
Crew, actually,
notes.
It's Uplift. So basically the top 11 all had at least 1 winner. So Melbourne Uni, Melbourne Strength Culture finished 11th and they had 1 first place. But it starts at Uplift and then Crundle Crew where they have teams with no winners. So you said you need at least need at least 1 win to be up there, but preferably a little more.
So I didn't have Crundle Crew. I had them actually getting relegated, so they were in my sort of bottom 6. But I had Uplift projected at 4th. So
yeah, a bit of a shake-up, and it will be interesting to see how it all kind of pans out next year. Because these teams are all these 10 teams that we've listed are the Premier bracket for next year. They're locked and loaded, and the pressure will be on. Some of those teams scored, well on day 1, but then lost a lot of points on day 2. I mean, one notable example is Paragon's Tony Wong. She finished in 1st on day 1 and then 6th after day 2, so lost a lot of points. But they still held their own. They're still in the top 10 overall. I think an interesting talking point is that I want to ask you about, because you're a sports guy and you understand how these things work. This is our 2nd year of running this, and both years the winning team came from the challenge bracket. Is the Premier bracket advantage purely theoretical? Is it actually relevant? Or how relevant is it? I mean, we've only had 2 editions. I'd love to see what this is like in 10 years' time, once you've had a few more go-arounds. But two times in a row, 2 out of 2, we've had winners from the challenger bracket. And I mean, this year we had the top 2 both come from the challenger bracket. So it maybe says that there's actually not as much of an advantage as we were led to believe.
I definitely still think that the advantage is huge. I think if you look at the 2 years, first year Panthers coming in, new team, populated all the weight classes that didn't have anyone else in them. So kind of won a lot by default. Didn't have a necessarily strong team. It was just a very strategically placed team. And then this year it was 2 newer teams, but we're not new teams. You know what I mean? We're just new to this event.
Mm-hmm.
So like we had strong teams. I think Compound had the highest average GL. I think we were second in highest average GL.
Yes, correct.
So it's hard to beat those teams if they go first, regardless. Like you don't have stronger people. Like we saw a couple of situations where like, you know, Charles probably beats Aaron if they're lifting together because Charles would have been able to deadlift after him. Aaron would have had to go first. He would have set us a target. You know, even with that missed squat, the chances are Charles has the last say there. So in that case, like we probably win a couple extra points. Same thing with Compound with Liam and with Declan as well. Like there's a chance that we get actually more points than we got. So I think we still did lose points because we were in the first day, but it wasn't enough to take us out of those first two spots. So I think like there's definitely a disadvantage to being on the first day, but I think the likelihood that you're going to get two teams as established, both on the first day lifting for the first time at the same time, is unlikely.
Yeah, I think it's. I have to agree with everything you just said there. Like the advantage is huge. It's just, I guess because it's only its second edition of this kind of like system that it just hasn't been ironed out. It's kind of like what it reminds me of is like when raw powerlifting just started and like everyone's breaking records and the records are really low standards. And so you get these weird cases where like the 52 kilo weight class record is higher than the 57 kilo weight class. Like that shouldn't be like that. It's just that it hasn't had a chance for like enough results to have filtered through to kind of like level it all out. But I think if the comp continues to grow and we run this event another 50 times, like we might not ever see a challengers team win. You know, if
sorry, you go.
Yeah, like if the competition was a bit deeper and ran through a few more times, we might not ever see it happen again. It just happens to be the first 2 years it just worked out that way.
Yeah, and we could see it again next year with Uplift. Like, you know, they could bring Kate and Jansen and Chris Yip and like they win. Like you can't just magically get stronger than someone who's lifted before you. If the target's too high, the target's too high. It's not like there's not much you can do about that. So yeah, I think like if the battle is close and there are weight classes that you can steal points from, it's a huge advantage to go second. But if someone is going to be miles ahead, like look at Sophie and Natalia, like they both won by like so much. Like there was nothing that anyone was going to be able to do. Yeah, there was no advantage you could gain from lifting after them. Like it was just wasn't happening. So, yeah, if a good team is in the first day, they can win.
So what you're saying is that the most important factor to winning powerlifting meets is being the strongest team, being physically stronger. But there is definitely
having strong people.
The Charles example. I mean, Tyson and Tim outlifting Liam. You know, they're able to do that because they had a static target. You know, I used that term before, static target or a sitting duck. You know, Charles Kafusu's total is a sitting duck. You know, Aaron Carew can reverse engineer the comp plan and say, well, we were going to squat 312, but let's only squat 307. Let's pull it back 5 kgs and like lock that in so we can pace ourselves towards that sitting duck target. Who's, you know, you're a rifleman and you're just staring at this like immobilized duck that's out in the field. It just makes life a lot easier. So yeah, I agree. Like the advantages are there, but it's only there if it's going to be close. But if it's not close, you're too strong, then you're too strong. Like, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. And there's like enough weight classes that there could just be instances where, like, in the 57 class, like there was just no one that was going to be anywhere close to Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just wasn't happening.
Like we said before, it's kind of nice to have those classes that are wrapped up from day one. Like that does help.
Yeah, it definitely like decreases the amount of ways that the scoring could change for sure. Like there was only a few classes to really watch for shifting of team points on that second day. It's like 84, 69, 120, 105. And that was pretty much it.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of like, it's funny because like there are only a few classes that are tied, but those ones matter a lot. Like, you know, we talked about the 69 class, like how it worked out ended up being not as dramatic as it could have been, but it could have been very, very different result. You know, we alluded to it earlier, but I did want to formally ask you your favorite moments of the competition. You mentioned Langi's deadlift, Aaron Carew's, but yeah, if you had to go list your top 3, Alex, what were the biggest 3 moments from the weekend?
So I have 4. Can I say 4?
Let's do it.
Okay. So starting on Saturday, Charles pulling 320 to give us the win in the challenger bracket, and you know, take out the 120 class. That was my favorite moment up to that point. obviously really important lift. He posted on his story last night, like, oh, this lift got us $3,000 instead of 2,500. And I actually messaged him like, no, it actually got us $3,000 instead of 1,500 because Compound would have won the Saturday and probably won the overall as well.
Yeah, it would
had
have
he
been a 4
missed.
point turnaround.
Or it would have been, it would have been because we would have had 2 firsts, a second, and a third each, and then it would have gone to GL. So it actually, that one lift won us the whole thing.
Yeah, that's actually a good.
So that's my first one.
That's a great interpretation for sure.
The next one, I'll go in order of when they happened. The next one, Tony Rymouth 405 squat. We spoke about it. Fucking unreal. People on their feet. Biggest squat in Australian drug tested history. I mean, what else needs to be said?
The whole room.
Next one.
Have you seen that? I was going to interrupt you. Have you seen that? There's a trend on Instagram and stuff. It's like, I was this many years old when I realized that you should be filming the other way around when you're singing Happy Birthday. Have you seen this?
No.
So it's like someone singing Happy Birthday, like it's someone's birthday, right? And everyone's singing Happy Birthday and they're sitting in front of their cake. And everyone's filming the person whose birthday it is. But then the person whose birthday it is, they're filming all their friends around them. And it's like really cute. The idea is you get to see all your friends and family like singing to you and all like smiling and stuff. And it's really, really wholesome.
Yeah.
It was a little bit like that when Tony was doing his squat. Instead of filming the squat, I was filming the crowd. And you could just see everyone standing, peeking over everyone's shoulders. Everyone had their phone out. Like, it was just like, that was cool. Like, I didn't actually film the lift because I was like, well, I'm going to see the lift 100 times. But it's this moment, crowd, that to me was like what I loved watching in that moment.
Yeah. That's funny. It's like, that reminds me of the trend on like Instagram, the POV.
Yeah.
You know, it's like POV, and everyone always fucks up the POV. There's always a video of themselves. It's like, bro, that is not the POV. Do people even know what POV means? Anyway, Tony 405, unreal. The next one was Aaron Caruso 312. Obviously, like, he took second place in 120 with his 302.5 on second attempt, and then an extra 10 kilos to beat Charles. And just the hype of Aaron, the hype of their coaching team, just the whole thing was just like fucking awesome. I loved it. Loved that moment. You know, like I said before, even though it was my guy who was getting kicked off the top of the podium, it was such a good powerlifting moment. And the last one was Lungy's 190, which was, essentially, we all thought a Hail Mary. We all thought it was going to be too much based off of how the 180 second attempt moved. And she just fought and kept going and locked it out. And it was great.
You and I think alike because it's basically the same. You said to me yesterday, I think it's a pretty obvious top moments. There were a few minor like tweaks, I would say, to those kinds of things. Like for me, and I think you would agree with this, like you're obviously talking about the lifts, which is the key point, right? Like the lifts were freaking awesome. Like Lungy making that deadlift. There's an edit, I think the after movie edit, where like the music and the noise is so loud and then it just quietens down as Lungy puts the bar down. You can hear like the bar rattle. Like I just love that sound. Like that was just a really cool part of the edit. There was little things like even when Lotta made that, because I was announcing, so I was like right there. When Lotta made that last deadlift, what's it called? Tyler comes in and puts in the change of the attempt. Like the attempt card comes in. Like I love when the coach is making the attempt change. Like I love everything about it. Like just like the jostling. Like I see Tony Nguyen and Michael Porso-Vigan of Elemental sitting there with like the back of the score, like the back of the attempt cards, like just double checking the maths and like all those things are just like so. I feel like that's like the essence of powerlifting. You know, like those are the moments like when the attempt change comes in. When Michael Porso-Vigan came in and changed our opener, like I was there, and he handed it to the table, and the table were like, "Oh, they're changing the opener," and I didn't even look at the opener. I was like, "It must be to beat Alex." And then we did it. We're like, "Oh yeah, it's to beat Alex." You know, like just those things. I'm just like, I just love those things. And so when he came out and did his opener, I wasn't announcing, so it wasn't like super hyped up in that moment. But I knew what it meant. Like I knew this was it. You know, like I think I looked at you like, you're like, yeah, I know.
Well, Tony was on the mic and she said, "This is to beat Alex Hayes" about 6 times. Okay. And I'm looking over and I'm like, "Do you want to say it any more times?" Like,
right. So she nailed it. Yeah, good one. But yeah, I mean, echoing your sentiment, those were the key moments. And what I found interesting is obviously Tony's squat, like Tony Rymouth's squat, not Antonia Wong's squat. Tony Rymouth's squat was one of the big highlights, but the other three that you mentioned were all not only big lifts like objectively, but for the results. And like that's what we love about sports, right? It's like how they shift the results, how the actual results change because of these lifts. That's what we care more about. The lift, it could be a very mediocre lift in the grand scheme of things, but if this lift changes the results, then it suddenly is very, very important and clutch. And when the pressure's on and the music's on and the crowd's screaming and you need this lift to shift the placings, then yeah, those are the moments we live for as sports fans.
Who was in charge of turning the music up and down?
Whoever was there, because the way it works is that the music's at the back of the room and the iPad has to be plugged in, so we can't do it remotely. So it's whoever was there. I think in the last round it was Billy. Billy was in control.
Because whoever was doing it did a really good job.
Yeah, well, shout out Billy because she nailed it. Because that's what it is. You got to turn the music down so the announcer can be like, "And this is for the win, bar is loaded," and then music goes up and it's like, "Oh."
Yeah.
Everyone just reverts to like baboon status. Like you just become an absolute ape in the moment.
Yep.
All right, Al, I want to round this out by asking you. I said at the start your general impressions. How you found it, you enjoyed it. It was a great competition, great camaraderie. You kind of talked about having the scoreboard was good. What are you looking forward to next year? What are your suggestions for me as a meet director? How can we make things better? Try to keep it within budget, but what would you like to see different? Obviously, there are going to be limitations. I would love to have it in an auditorium with a professional broadcast, but that's not going to happen. But what things can we do to improve it, or what might be some ideas? You're an ideas guy. You gave me some ideas the other day. Not all of them work, but what have you been thinking about?
I think the first thing was how cold I was refereeing. Right. Like, you need to get some heaters in there, man.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually.
I'm just
get some blankies.
I was fucking freezing. The main thing I thought about was penalty points. Mm-hmm. So I think we kind of mentioned this earlier with the scoring system. I think it's a good idea to stretch the scoring system further. And like maybe it's 8, maybe it's the top 7 that get points. And after that should be zeros, I think. If there's a class with 20 people in it, why should 20th place get the same points as 7th place?
Well, because they still turned up. They put together a total.
Are we giving away participation medals, are we?
The 7th, 9th is getting the same as 20th, They're all on 0.
Well, they're all currently on 1.
Yeah, but if you may give them all 0, they still get the same point. Anyway.
Anyway, it goes against my competitive part of my brain. I think there should be a penalty for bombing. Like, there should be a -1 for bombing. Shouldn't be 0. You should actually lose points.
I think the penalty is you get 0. Like, relative to 1, it's -1 relative to 1, right? It's all relative. The points are relative.
But I don't understand. What's the theory behind getting a point just for finishing the comp? You get a total on open powerlifting. You get a result. Like, why does your team deserve a point?
Because why don't they deserve the point? You were there. You did it. You lifted.
Because they came 9th or 10th or whatever.
All right, carry on. So penalty points. Do you think there should be more penalty points? Well, I think if we're going to scale it up, the penalty points have to be higher, right? In proportion.
Yes. So I think the late changes should be more than 2 points. If
we bring it up to 8.7, 8.654, or just even as it is?
Even as it is, because there is a world in which you could see what happened on day 1 and you could move your last place lifter who's going to get 1 point to swap them in for someone who's going to now get 4 points. Mm-hmm. And you're actually gaining a point in that instance. So there's actually a way in which you could actually score more points by swapping someone late, mm-hmm. even including the penalty. Mm-hmm. And including the penalty, you could take points from somebody else that teams need those points, if that makes sense.
Yep, I'm following you. Of course.
So if you took like a first place after a late change, the guy who you subbed in gets 6 points. Now it's -2, so you're essentially getting 4, but you're actually also taking 2 points away from somebody else. So that change could give you a total net number of points of 3 if you did the change right. Like, because you could gain a point by going from, like, let's say a 1 point to 4 points, even with the taking off the 2. So you're gaining a point.
Yeah.
And you're taking 2 points off another team. So you could get like a net benefit of up to 3 points if you did the change the right way.
Strategically. Yeah, sure. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like you could literally wait until you see the results on the day 1 and go, okay, this guy who I've got is going to come, fifth. I'm going to swap them in for someone who's going to win, and also take points off this other team, and also give our team more points.
But do you think there's actually like a likelihood of that happening? Like where, if the competition is deep enough, like I don't think there are going to be classes that are empty where you can just like win easy 6 points. And even if there are, them 3 weeks out, like the empty classes are already there.
True, but it's a loophole. Like it's a potential loophole.
Yeah, and that's what you got to protect against. You asked me about giving the top teams an advantage. How about the advantage is the Premier bracket get an extra day to do the changes. So the Challenger bracket have to submit their changes, and then the Premier bracket get 24 hours notice to make their last changes. Kind of like you're lifting a day later, you get an extra day to make your changes. So you can see what the Challenger bracket have submitted. They can't see it amongst themselves. They've got to submit it by Friday, for example, and then the Premier bracket have to submit it by Saturday. And that way you get that extra 24 hours. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I don't love that.
Okay.
Because I think it's a little bit too much of an advantage. Like you already get the extra day to see the totals and stuff. I don't love that. One thing I thought about was maybe like the top 3 teams from the previous year get a 5th lifter. And the 5th lifter, like whoever's the lowest scoring lifter on the team, those points don't count to the team. So the team still gets 4 lifters that count to the team.
I understand.
But you can throw in a 5th lifter. So then maybe, like you have your bottom 2 lifters are like jostling for a second or a third. One of them gets second, one of them gets third. The second place counts.
Yeah. That ruins the symmetry. I like the symmetry of 4s, and that's why I want 25 teams, because we get 25 teams. It's exactly 100 lifters. It's 4, but it's so symmetrical. 4 sessions, like everything just is so beautifully balanced.
I do have a question for you though. What's the like limit on number of teams in the Premier? Is it 10? Is it just always going to be 10 on day 2?
Well, it's 10 for now, but I would be open to opening it up if we had enough teams. Like if we did get a full 25 teams next year, you'd have to have 15 on day 1, 10 on day 2, and it gets quite congested on day 1. So I would be open to making it 11, but again, it kind of messes with the symmetry. I think one of the benefits of the Premier bracket, there are so many obviously, but like you wouldn't have seen this as much because you weren't out back, but you would have gone out the back a little bit. The back room is just like more peaceful on day 2. Like there's less people out there. Day 1, it's like 11 or 12 in a group. Everyone's fighting over the racks. Whereas on day 2, you've only got 8 in a group. And so there's just more space. It's slower pace. It's less chaotic. And you can really highlight the prime time kind of aspect of it. But yeah, I would be open to having more than 10, but not much more than 10. Like I kind of want the day 2 to be that really, when you're in a big meet, like, and this is no disrespect to the big meets, like I'm thinking of like USAPL Nats last year, Mega Nats. When you have 200 lifters, it is a little bit of like churning through them. Like, okay, we've got to get through the lifters. Like, come on, we've got to move through the competition. The spotters are instructed. You've got to move quickly. Like, we've got to get through everyone. I don't want that feeling on day 2. I want the day 2 to be like, not slow paced, but like a healthy pace of like, everybody gets their moment. There's no rush. We're not just trying to get through the session. We're actually trying to enjoy it. So I'm cautious about having too many teams in the Premier.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Is there like a is there like a limit? Is the limit 10? Is the limit 12?
Maybe it's 12.
Because like, what if it was 3 sessions
on day 1?
On day 2?
On day 2, that might be, but maybe the limit is
like
2 sessions. I wouldn't want to do more than 2 because we're all tired from day 1. The sleep-in's good. So maybe it's 12. Like if you
would you do 3 sessions on day 1 then?
Yeah, I could do 3 because you could do 20, 20, 20. That's 15 teams. That's 60 lifters. So 20 in session 1, 20 in session 2, 20 in session 3, 10 lifters per group. And then day 2 would be, if you had 12, then you'd have 12 times 4 is 36, 18 per session. So that's 9. Is that right? Yeah. That's still fine. And that's still less than the day before, like less per group.
Yeah. The other thought I had was like, so in in like basketball or in footy, the home team gets to choose the ball, and the home team gets to choose which basketball they play with.
Cool.
And stuff like that. So maybe the team who won from the previous year gets to choose which barbell they use, or like which bench you guys use, or like something like that.
I don't know if that would make. I like that creativity.
I don't know if that would make any difference, but like, yeah,
it's a nice symbolic.
It's like,
symbolic advantage.
I've got a lifter who struggles with grip. I'm gonna go find the fucking grippiest bar. Or like, I don't have any lifters who struggle with grip, but I know this other team does, so I'm gonna pick the slipperiest bar.
Yeah, can we use a commercial gym bar? Does it meet the specs? It's in. You turn up the next day with,
What about
with a brush
the
and you're
winning
washing
team
the
from the
bar.
year before? The winning team from the year before doesn't have to provide a volunteer.
Nah, fuck that. You got to bring 2 volunteers.
Hey, we did 3. We're good.
Well, the funny thing is, if we scale up the points like 8, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, suddenly the 1 point volunteer point is like less valuable. You know, like the currency is higher, so 1 volunteer point just means less. So I will have to think about how we do that. Maybe a volunteer is worth 2 or something. I don't know.
Could you just make volunteers like it's not worth a point, but each team, in order to sign up, has to put a volunteer forward?
I mean, you could, but then how do you enforce it? Like, this is the problem. It's like, and if they don't, how do I punish them? The beauty about the points is there's a genuine punishment. Like, for example, no one's allowed in the warm up area. Last year, I nearly gave someone a penalty point because they had friends in the warm up room. I warned them twice. Whereas in a normal comp, if people disobey you, then there's no punishment. It's literally just, hey, don't do that. Whereas it's like, no, I'm being serious. If you don't submit a volunteer, you lose a point. If you have 3 coaches out back, you're going to lose a point. Like, it's a lot easier. As a meet director, I've actually got a currency that I can say to teams, hey, you better do things properly. Otherwise you will genuinely suffer consequences. Whereas in a normal meet, okay, you're only allowed 2 coaches out back, but then a 3rd coach comes out and helps out. All you can do is just say, hey, don't do that. You know, there's no weight behind it.
Yeah, I think you can actually disqualify someone, like the referee.
But I think disqualifying, I feel like, is such a big consequence.
Yeah.
You need something in between. Like, disqualifying is a big ask. You're not going to do that very often. So being able to say, like, hey, don't do that, otherwise you lose a penalty point. Bang, easy. It's not a huge loss, but it's enough of a deterrent. Like, you need to provide a volunteer. You need to do these things. It does give me a bit of what's the word? Like a leg to stand on when I'm trying to negotiate with these clubs. I mean, 99% of clubs, 99% of the time are good and they cooperate and all that stuff, but they don't always.
You know, I actually did have a thought about what constitutes a team, because we didn't see that at all, or we kind of saw a couple groups of just like random mates thrown together. Do you have an issue with that? Because I feel like if the prize money gets substantial enough, like, what's stopping the 4 best lifters in Australia just teaming up, be like, hey, let's go win this money? Like, is there going to be any definition about, like, it has to be a gym or a coaching company or like some sort of coaching group or something like that?
I had that question actually asked me on the weekend. The definition of a team is 1 coach, 4 lifters. And that's why I make a big point about the coach has to submit the attempts to try to discourage people from like having their own coach there on the day. No, it's like the coach is the coach of the team. I don't personally have an issue with like the friends kind of making a thing. Like we had that last year with the Chads. You're right, though. There's nothing to stop, you know, Josh Takua and like, you know, Liz Craven and so and so and so and so to just form a group of like a foursome and come. I don't see that happening because what I found over the last few years is people are very loyal to their teams. Like the team thing is a very respected concept. Also, the money's not so much that it's worth it because you're never guaranteed. Like we've said about sports, like no one's guaranteed to win. So to go to all that effort and then not win is a bit silly. And yeah, I mean, like, I know what you mean. Like there should be some stops to prevent totally taking the piss and loopholes and stuff. But I just haven't seen anything like that that's so concerning. And even then, if they want to form a team, then good for them, I would say. Like, I suppose. Maybe we should like have like franchise deals where the clubs have to pay a franchise fee and to be part of the system and just more ways to take it.
I do like your idea that I can't remember who you were talking to it about, talking about it to, where you have to, as a team, submit like 8 lifters at the start. And then your final 4 lifters has to come from that 8.
Yeah, come from that pool. You can't just like randomly pull people out of your ass. So you actually know who's on the roster at a time. Like you can see the bench. You've got a bench. The bench has to be listed.
Yeah, exactly. Do you want to explain your idea about the B teams?
Yeah, so that was my other idea, was to give premier teams an opportunity of having a B team. Let's say, you know, you've got more than 4 good lifters. You want to submit, okay, Process B team lifts in challenges, Process A team lifts in premiers. They compete like any other team. I'd have to kind of tease out the rules around it, like the system. For example, one easy rule I would think about is like the premier team can only draw from the B team for their changes. You can't change from outside. You can't just like pull random people in. The idea is the B team is the B team for a reason. They act as like a feeding station. So if someone in the A team gets injured, then a B team lifter has to get promoted, and then that lifter has to get replaced, and that would only count as one change, right? Because it's effectively one change. I'd have to think about what the rules are about promotion, because like, what happens if the B team also gets promoted? Like, I wouldn't want to have two teams from the same team, from the same club in the Premier. I think that just gets a bit silly. So it might just be a case where they can't get promoted; they just win and stay there, I suppose. So yeah, I think giving some teams the opportunity to have a B team would be good. We've seen that at like international comps, like especially when we had the Oceanias and stuff, we'd have Australia B teams so that we get twice as many submissions. Yeah, what do you think?
I honestly think that it would take time and spots away from newer clubs, newer teams getting in. Because how many did we have this year? 19?
19, yeah.
Let's say all 19 are back plus 6 new teams and you get 25. Then you're giving an extra 10 teams a B team. You now got 35 teams.
Hell yeah.
Like, would you actually want that?
No. 25 is enough. But maybe there's spots.
Could the B team win the overall?
I mean, they could in theory, but that'd be pretty hard. The A team would have to really fuck up.
I mean, if they were in different weight classes, like you might just have like a lucky run.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, I guess they could win the whole thing. That'd be historic.
Yeah, I don't know about the B team thing.
Sure.
I think I prefer the 4. And it's just here's your best 4, because it kind of almost gives you like a insurance policy. Your B team's like a bit of a insurance.
Yeah, true.
In a way,
that's the advantage of being in the Premier. So you get the choice of having a B team. Like, I don't think many teams would actually use it. Like, of the 10, if I genuinely offered a B team, I would be surprised if even 2 or 3 did it, because it's hard to put together a full team of 4, let alone another full team of 4.
Yeah, it'd be a hard sell for me to be like, hey, do you want to come to Melbourne for team champs? And also you're lifting in the B team.
Right. Yeah, exactly right. You suck.
Yeah.
No, you don't suck, but yeah.
Also, big shout out to the guy who I replaced in the team, Richard Chalik. I saw him yesterday and I was like, thank you so much for agreeing to not go, because we wouldn't have won if he went, because we would have had 2 93s.
Yeah.
Actually, we probably would have won. We would have had first and second.
First and second. Yeah, which is the same as what you had in the end.
Yeah. So it wouldn't have changed anything.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to have 2 93s.
No, of course. Like, why would you trip on each other's toes like that? Look, it's been a good chat. I think we should wrap it up because we're pushing on 2 hours and there's enough here. Alex, it's been great. Is there anything you want to add? I feel like you're about to.
No, I don't have anything to add other than just a big thank you to you. Big thank you to Billy and everyone at the fort, to Kane, Birds, people who ran the stream. Just like such a fun event to be a part of. You know, usually these like professional comps aren't as fun as this. It really felt like a fun just weekend of powerlifting. So yeah, I'm stoked to be a part of it. Obviously, even happier to be able to win one, and hurry up and send me my money, bro.
I'll get to that shortly this week. But yeah, like you said, powerlifting is a community-driven sport, and I think the team aspect highlights that. Like, it really encourages that kind of like feeling and stuff. So yeah, it was a great time. Thanks for the kind words. We will do our best to put on a bigger and better one next year. Appreciate everyone for paying attention, following along, watching all the podcasts. If you made it this far, leave something in the comments. What should we ask them to leave in the comments if they made it this far, Alex? Leave Process Powerlifting Club.
A rocket emoji.
Process Powerlifting Club ! In the comment section if you made it this far. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, Alex, and we'll talk to you next year.
See you, bro.